Hoops through life. Hoops through life.
Welcome to another episode of Hoops Through Life, a podcast where we discuss the women's basketball collegiate recruiting process and transition from high school to college. I'm your host, Elsbeth Bierman. We have 3 two-time ODAC champions today for part 1 of a very special bonus episode, and by the end of it, I know you'll love them as much as I do. Diandra Mundle, Sarah Sondrol, and Brooke Riley. They all played basketball and graduated from Shenandoah University, playing with Melissa Smeltzer-Craft as their head coach. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. Diandra is from Capitol Heights, Maryland. She graduated from undergrad in 2022 and will graduate from graduate school in May of 2024 with her master's in higher educational leadership. She is currently a graduate assistant coach at Salisbury University for the women's basketball team. Sarah is from Waynesboro, Virginia. She graduated in 2022 with her degree in business administration, and she is currently working in human resources at a large manufacturing plant in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I'm sure there's more than one. Brooke is from Westminster, Maryland. She graduated from undergrad in 2020 and finished grad school in 2023 with her doctorate in physical therapy. So maybe I should have introduced her as Dr. Brookie Cookie. She is currently working at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore. And thank you all so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, so let's just get into it. So I typically start these episodes asking the coaches what they first notice about student athletes, but this time, obviously, we're just going to kind of go in a little bit of a different direction. I want you to go back and think about your recruitment process when you were making your list of schools that you might be interested in. What are the first things that you would notice about a potential school that you might be interested in, whether that be positive or negative? So let's start with D, and then we'll move to Sarah and then Brooke.
I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that my process was a lot different than maybe everybody but C's. I only visited Shenandoah, which I wouldn't recommend, honestly. So when I got there, it just felt like home immediately. And I was there with my high school coach and my father. And then Coach Craft, if y'all heard the episode, if you know her, she's just the best. And she just really knows how to talk to people and get people to just fall in love with her immediately. And I think that's what it was for me. And also Olivia was there and we played AAU together. So that was just like a lot of green flags happening in the moment. And just like the cleanliness of the campus, everybody being overly excited to see me, the food, that it's like a small thing, but even like coaching now, like the food is very important. And I will never forget what I had on my visit. It was like a chicken salad sandwich. And then they eventually stopped serving those throughout 4 years. So that's fine. But the food for sure. And there's the people. That's what it was for me.
So then D, you said you wouldn't recommend that. We'll get into this a little bit later, but since you said it right now, like what would you recommend? Yeah,
I think like growing up and just going through the process of college and then like job searching, I didn't have a lot of relationships. All I knew was Shenandoah. So that was hard for me knowing what direction to go in. Relationships is the biggest thing. And then it's just like, you always want to have options because you never know how your career will go with injury, playing time. It can go a lot of different directions, and I've seen it go multiple directions for different athletes. So I don't recommend that to high schoolers to just only go to one college visit. And then you just never know what you like if you only go to one. So I only went to one, and I knew I wanted to go to Shenandoah immediately, and my dad made that happen, and that's what we did.
Yeah, so for me, as you guys know, and for the people listening, my sister started at Shenandoah. She's 2 years older than me, so she was there for 2 years. And not that I solely kept my option to Shenandoah. When I was in high school playing high school basketball, I wanted to see what other options were out there. But like Diandra said, Shenandoah was one of my main schools and one of my only visits that I took. I did take a visit to Randolph College. But it really wasn't the location. I think the program at the time was just not what I was looking for. I know they were still in their rebuilding phase. So really, I only visited 2 colleges, like officially. Now I had some interest from a few other Division III schools, but I just, as my sister was at Shenandoah, I mean, I had family live in Winchester, and I think it was a goal of mine to just play with my sister another 2 years after high school. So my process was a little bit different from people who don't have siblings or family or friends that play at the school they're going to. Um, but I kind of wish sometimes I would have looked at other options a little more, even though I probably still would have went to Shenandoah. Um, but I don't regret a single thing that happened or the decision I made. But it was just kind of like, I feel like people knew that's where I was going to go just because Jordan was there. But yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you already had an impression of Shenandoah before even going there, and I do remember your visit very vividly. We were sitting on the couch. I didn't know you well at all, and Coach Kraft and your mom were just like sitting there crying, and me, you, and Coach Abby were just like looking at each other like, what is going on? So yeah, I could see that you would end up at Shenandoah kind of no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Brooke?
So for the people listening that don't know me, I'm very methodical and like type A personality. So my list of like things that I would ask about or look at was pretty long when I looked at all the different places. Um, I had the things that I wanted out of my basketball career and I had the things that I wanted out of my academic career. So I kind of looked at everything. I knew I wanted to go to a school that I could do physical therapy at as well as play basketball. So that kind of narrowed down my search to D3 schools that had a physical therapy program so I could stay throughout my whole 6 or 7 years. Um, and then I also wanted like a small class size and the health life science building at Shenandoah is great. So I knew that that was going to be something that would be a plus for me academically. And then basketball related, I was really looking into like, their record and like the gym that they were playing in and how long the coach had been there and things like that. I really wanted consistency. And when I was first looking at Shenandoah, the record wasn't great. The years before they hadn't been doing super well. So that was like a little nerve-wracking, but I also felt like I could be a part of something where like the team continued to get better, and like build a program. So that was really nice. And there was talk of the WAC being built as I was getting recruited. So my first year that I was there, I played half in Shingleton and half in the WAC. Um, so that was really nice. And then Coach Kraft just made me feel so comfortable in that visit that I had. She was very reassuring and for the most part fairly straightforward about like what expectations would be like and what she expects of students. And she was very reassuring and supportive of my wanting to do like physical therapy and doing the 3+3 program. She made me feel like academics definitely came first, and that was super important. So overall, I also would highly recommend doing an overnight visit. I think the fact that I got to do an overnight visit at Shenandoah helped. I didn't do any overnight visits anywhere else. So getting to like hang out with the team, go to classes, do an open gym, that all really drew me to Shenandoah.
Yeah, it sounds like I was listening to your three answers, and this is why I really like your class so much because I think you all are so different. So, Brooke, it was like very logistically driven. Like, can I do this and this and this? And then Diandra, I don't want to say it was more about feel, but like that's what you talked about. Is you talked about like feeling like a family, and that's what was very important to you, is just feeling comfortable. And then Sarah, your family was just Hornets 3.0. So you you were just like kind of already in there because of some family connections as well. So it's just interesting that all of the different interests or drivers kind of led you all to the same decision, but for kind of different reasons. All right. So within the process, thinking back to like just going through the whole recruiting cycle, what's maybe something that made you feel like uneasy about it? Or yeah, like what, talk a little bit about that. What made you feel uneasy, or kind of who did you lean on throughout the process for guidance and advice? And anybody can go. Let's go reverse. So Brooke, Sarah D.
As far as people that I leaned on, I really leaned on my AAU coach. Heather Deweese, shameless plug. Uh, but our team was very good. We like really focused on going to different states and really trying to get people recruited because we had girls going D1 all the way down to D3. So she had been through the process herself and she was very supportive of reaching out to coaches for us and trying to find the best fit for us. So she was super helpful. And then my parents were great, like helping me figure out the right questions to ask when I went places and thinking about like long term, what am I looking for? As far as things that maybe made me uneasy, I think I was always nervous that when I was talking to maybe the teams, whether or not they were being honest. So, when you go on a recruiting visit and you're asking the questions, of course, the coaches for the most part are going to try and make everything sound great. So ideally, I would want the team to tell me their true feelings about their experiences. So sometimes, when I would go somewhere and everything they were saying was positive and no one had anything negative to say, it was kind of a little uneasy because I'm like, is this truly what you're feeling? Is everything great and there's no problems at all? Or are you kind of trying to hide it because, they told you what to say, sort of thing?
I think my answer is going to be kind of centered around my last answer. I mean, I definitely leaned on my family during the process, but I think my parents were very supportive of me, like if I chose to go somewhere else. I mean, I know they were a big Hornets family because of my sister and all my family that lived in Winchester, but I think they really pushed me to, you know, look at other options and, if I wanted to do a visit somewhere else, go do it. Go talk to their coach. Go reach out to, so and so. Don't just solely set your sights on Shenandoah, even though in my head, I'm like, that's the place I think I'm going to go because that's what I want to do. And I already knew that. So I think that's why I visited Randolph and, talked to a few other coaches here and there throughout like my AAU process in high school. But really just my family, like I feel like my mom and dad were two of the biggest supporters of me doing what I wanted to do. And even in hindsight, I look at it and it was like, even if I didn't want to play basketball in college, they were fine with it. But obviously that's something that I wanted to do. So they were really supportive of me. And I just thank them for everything that they've done for me, especially during the recruiting process, because I know it can be stressful and there's a lot of options and a lot of things you have to ask yourself. And like Brooke said, ask the people that are trying to sell the college to you or the university. And, some people do make it sound like it's the best place on earth, even if it's not. So it's kind of things you have to weed through and just make the decision for yourself and like nobody else.
Yeah. And so, Sarah, I have a question about something you said. You said that your parents were very supportive of like doing what you wanted to do. What was your process to try to figure that out? Like figure out what does Sarah want to do?
Yeah, I think as I was in my senior year of high school, knowing that I wanted to play basketball in college, I think that was my first step. It's like, do I want to continue to play basketball for the next 4 years? And I think I reflected a lot and I was like, if I don't do it, I think I'm going to miss it too much, knowing that my sister's out there playing basketball and I, won't get a chance to play either with her or against her in some aspect. So really, also basketball has been a part of my life since I was like 5 years old. So me thinking about that, like I couldn't give it up. So that was my first thought process. And my second one was just like where I was going to go. It just really it took a few months to like gather all of my options and the process for me, I want to say it's probably easier than some of the other processes people go through just because I had a head start with my family and stuff. But really just thinking about all the different questions that could come up and really the right fit.
I think early on, like I knew what the goal was, and that was to get an education. So when I started to play with Germantown Lady Panthers, my high school coach, he coached there also, and it was it was instilled in all of us very early. It doesn't matter what the level is. So if it's Division 3, you're going to get the best education, and not to say Division 2 or Division 1 is not like that, but that's sometimes not the first priority is academics. So I leaned on him a lot and just like people in the GOP community. And then obviously my dad, I mean, once we figured out that I was going to go to Shenandoah. One thing that did make me uneasy was the financial standpoint of it, because I don't come from a whole rack of money, and I know that everybody that we graduated with don't, or didn't, or still don't. I don't,
No one's won the
whatever. But
lottery yet, right?
no, so that was definitely the thing that made me uneasy. But my dad has always been very like chill, laid back. He's never gonna let me see him or anybody let them see him sweat. And I think that was very helpful for me in this process of knowing like we were gonna figure it out, regardless of what we had to do. He was gonna make sure I was able to have what I need and do what I wanted to do. And playing basketball in college was that, and to get an education was always that was like our goal. And he told me that from a very young age, like, if you want to go to college, like that's what we're going to do, that we're going to make it happen.
So how did the AAU organization, the Germantown Lady Panthers, how did the coaches there help you through the process?
So when I played there for a summer and a half of a summer. I got there really late, which didn't help me, but obviously it ended up working out. But just like they took us to places where coaches would be. So we didn't travel much to like crazy places like Kentucky or whatever. Like we went to Chicago when I played there. Now they're on the circuit, so they're like hot stuff now. So they do it all. But when I played there, we weren't on a UAA circuit. I don't know, just getting us in front of coaches and then just being supportive. So like if they never like dimmed our light. If we were getting looks from D3, that was like a big thing. And if you were getting looks from D2 and D1, that was a big thing. And I think that like the social media aspect, they've gotten a lot better with, but just people coming back was very helpful. So like seeing people come back from like the Columbias and I don't even know, like the McDaniels, like people who played before me, like who were older than me coming back, like you see the wide range of colleges that they were getting kids to school. It was just like it didn't matter where we went, like they were going to be happy for us either way. So the big support from them was really helpful.
Yeah, and I asked you that, Diandra, because I actually had a former player who played, not my year, she was actually a little bit younger than me, but she coaches now at NYU, and she played through the Lady Panthers program. And so we had like a whole little segment about Lady Panthers and Milton and all that on that episode that I recorded. So I know that organization and the things that they do for their athletes, which is why I asked. And to not only that, but Coach Stefan, your coach, came with you on the visit. And I don't think that that's super common. So I just wanted to highlight that help as well, because I'm sure when you all were in the car, like what were the conversations in the car driving to Shenandoah and then driving back?
Honestly, my dad can talk to a brick wall, and so can Stefan. So I don't think
and so can Coach Kraft.
Right. So I don't think we talked about a lot of like college things on the way there or back. Probably more so on the way back than on the way there. We probably were talking about like the mountains, and because if you know, Shenandoah's in the mountains, and it's a lot of like sticks and bricks and trees going up there from like the city where I'm from. So that's probably what we were talking about the most. But yeah, to your point, like it isn't common for high school coaches to come, but I had that relationship with him. Like I would run through a brick wall for that man still to this day. Like that's my guy. But it's just, I don't know. It's just like he was there. And I think a lot of it was he knew that my dad didn't have any experience with the recruit process. So, or just college in general. I was the first child to go to college in my immediate family. And I think that he was just there to help us through that. And I think my dad has some people like in the backgrounds, like we come from an area where fortunately a lot of kids go to college to play whatever sport that may be, football, basketball. So those people helped him out in the financial aid area and just like what to be looking for when we go on visits. Luckily for him, we only went on one. So
yeah. So like this is for everybody. Did anything come up as you heard other people answering that you might want to add on or say anything?
I mean, I would speak to what Brooke said about overnights, more so like being a coach. Like to all the coaches out there, I'll plug you in right now. If your school allows you to do overnights outside of the academic year or outside of the academic week, if you can do overnights during the weekend, I would highly recommend it. Recruits love that. do not want to go to classes with your student athletes. It's great. It's a fun time, but they want to see what it's really like on the weekend. I think a Friday to Saturday would be great. They can go to class and they can see what it is like, whatever it is, at your university or your college. Take that for what it is. But I think overnights are great, but I don't think that it should be an academic like punching bag. It should be more so like, what is the college life really like? Not sitting in classes all day. They do not want to see that.
I just want to add to the overnight thing. I can remember my overnight visit to Shenandoah. The first thing Coach Kraft said to me was like, I want you to do an overnight, number one, and number two, you cannot do it with your sister. So I had my overnight with Ashley and Mackenzie. I think it was Ashley and whoever her roommate was, but Mackenzie was there. And I slept on this air mattress in their dorm at Edwards. And my alarm hit 8 o'clock and I said, I'll see y'all later. I did my overnight, Coach Kraft. And I really wish, like, looking back at it now, I think when I was in high school, I was really scared to like get out of my shell. And I know that's unbelievable for you guys to understand, knowing me throughout college. But like really, when I was doing my overnight, I was really like, nervous and scared to be around people I didn't know, and especially like staying the night and being out of my comfort zone. So like one thing I do wish going back is I really embraced it more and looked at it as like an outside experience and not, wanting to be with my sister the whole time. So that's just one thing about my overnight experience that I would give advice is just, embrace it and try to step out of your comfort zone because that's what college is like.
I would also just say, like, kind of going back to what else I talked about, is not being afraid to ask direct questions or like the hard questions about the recruiting process to the coaches or to the other players, just so that way you get your answers that you need to feel most comfortable going somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so let's talk about the transition to college. How did you all prepare physically and mentally for your first semester as a college student athlete? If you need to take a second to think about it, you can, to put yourself back in that time frame. But yeah, how did you prepare physically and mentally? So let's go Sarah first, and then Brooke, and then Dee.
Yeah, I think my preparation period for moving into college for my first year, I don't think I did enough. And like being honest about it, looking mentally and extremely physically, my sister would always be like, listen, like we got to get out there, we got to work out. I promise you, it is not like high school basketball. Like you can't just get by and be the best one out there. Like, some high school teams, you're probably the best one on the team, but when you get to college, everybody was the best one on their team, starting out. So I think in my story, I don't think I did enough physically. And I know you guys knew me freshman year, not making my sprint times. And
if I had to give freshman
freshman
year Sarah one piece of advice before coming in, it would have been practicing touching the lines.
Many practices where I cried because we had to do it over because I'm the one who missed the line.
Just missed it.
So,
it wasn't. Yeah, she just missed it. I don't know. I guess it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Whoops.
I didn't think that was important. No, no, but mentally, I think I did. Like the transition period into college was very hard for me mentally. Because I didn't know what to expect, right? I mean, I knew my family. Some of my family was there. My sister was there. Thought it was going to be a piece of cake to just, be free, go into college, have my own space, my own schedule, get to do what I want, make new friends. But really, it was kind of a shell shock to me mentally. So I wish, going back and thinking that far back, I should have done more mental preparedness and physical preparedness in the summers and the days leading up to it.
So when you say, I think people know what you mean when you say physical, but like mental, what do you mean by that? Like, what were some mental blocks that you came across?
Do you mean like when I moved into college or like before?
So, yeah. So like that first semester.
Yeah. So I think for the mental aspect for me, my first semester of college was, I just felt really lonely. And the fact that I was living in the dorms, my first year at Shenandoah, and I had a roommate, and my roommate, she played field hockey. So she was gone all fall. Like I saw her in the afternoons when it was time to go to sleep, and that's it. And my sister was busy with her own schedule. We saw each other at open gyms, and she lived in a different area than I did. But really for me, and I don't think my first semester I did a good job of like making new friends. Like I had the basketball team and they were my friends. But I think really looking at the first semester, and even my sister would tell me like, Sarah, what's wrong with you? Why are you so sad? Like you look like you're having mental breakdowns every day. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, it's just hard. The transition from being at home, being with my family every day, to moving into a dorm with, this complete stranger that I didn't know 20 minutes before I got here, and having to live with them. And then, having a lot of alone time, it takes a lot of toll on your mental health sometimes. But I think after my first semester and once basketball season started, I think once basketball season started and we got into like the grit of things, I think I got a lot better because I got to know my teammates. I really leaned on them during the season. And then from there, I kind of took off. I think that first semester without basketball was the hardest one for me just because we had like a few things throughout the week. But once we got into it every day and I started to get closer with my teammates, I think I got a lot better.
So my experience is a little different, and I think it will help a lot of people, but I came into my first year after an injury. So I had just had surgery my senior year of high school on my hip. And that type of surgery, they say like estimate takes like 7 months to a year to recover from. I got released by my surgeon and like my therapist at like month 7, 8, and that was in the summer, like maybe July, right before coming in as a freshman. And I remember going to my high school track for the first time and, trying to do the little workout packet that we had. And I think I was running like 200s or 400s that day. And I attempted to do my first one and like almost threw up. I was just so out of shape and just so winded because I hadn't done it a whole lot in the past 7 months. And I called my mom sobbing. And I just told her, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to be the slowest person on the team. I'm so far behind. I don't know that I'm going to be able to play basketball. And, she just was like, you just come home, like take a break. It's your first day back. Like the fact that you even went out there and tried was great. So just come home and regroup. And I think my experience was different. As much as you really need to push yourself physically to come in to be prepared, I had to realize that I needed to take my transition a little bit slower, which was really hard because I didn't want to come in and be the weakest link on the team. Um, and so then transitioning into school and like lifts and everything as a freshman, it's hard. I don't know the athletic trainers, so I had to like go introduce myself and get really comfortable with them very quickly, which was great because Mara was our athletic trainer at the time and I loved her. Um, and also then like getting to know our strength and conditioning coach and being like first day walking in being like, I need you to help me adapt these workouts for something that I can do. And as a new person, that's very difficult.
hmm
I'm pretty outgoing, but that's still hard to come in and admit that I need help. Um, so that was more my physical transition, which was really tough. The mental transition was okay, I felt like. I think the one thing that I did struggle with was the times that I was feeling down, feeling comfortable, like coming to you all as coaches. Even though you guys were so open and welcoming, it was hard to admit like when I was struggling and to like start that relationship where I could come and just sit on the couch and be like, hey, this isn't going well, or something like that. It obviously got better once like we got into the swing of the season and I watched like some of the other older girls and their relationship with you all as coaches. And I was like, okay, so like I can go up to them and be like, hey, listen, this is my problem right now. Um, I think also just like the trying to make friends is difficult for everyone. What really helped me though was doing some of the things over the summer. Like I went to the open house and I met some great people then that were outside of basketball. And I think that that was kind of important to also have friends that aren't on the team. We spend so long together throughout the season, and so sometimes you just need a change of scenery and everything. So meeting some people over the summer was nice. I got in touch with my roommate over the summer, and like the other girls within my class. And so we kind of all knew each other and had relationships coming into school. So that was super duper helpful as far as like the making friends aspect. So I would recommend if you have like a Facebook group like for the school or something like that, trying to be a part of it and trying to start reaching out to people like before the school year starts, just so that way you're not walking around like looking for a place to sit at lunch or something like that. Like you have people you can fall back on right away.
Yeah, it just made me think of this. I just saw the new Mean Girls, the musical, and yesterday, and when she's like walking around and like she ends up in the bathroom, that's what I imagine, just like eating lunch in the bathroom. But you mentioned a couple things that I think are worth repeating.
Okay.
One was you said that you felt comfortable going to the coaching staff and expressing what you needed because you saw the upperclassmen expressing that. And I think that I don't know if you can get that on a visit. I don't know if you can get that through a question, but I do think that is something definitely maybe when you're watching a practice or something to look out for, or even just asking people on the team, like, what do you talk about with your coaches? And I think that will tell you a lot about if people feel comfortable expressing what they need, because it is hard when you're in your first year or second year, even to go up to like what you think are adults and like say like this is what I need in like receive that and have them receive that. So I think that was important to point out. And then also I wanted to ask you, when the summer before, when your hip was in pain, you were coming back from injury, how did you number one communicate that with the coaches, and then number two, how did you communicate that with the coaches during the summer?
So even before I got my surgery, I remember telling Coach Kraft and like calling her and being like, hey, I found out that I need surgery on my hip and I'm really nervous because the recovery time would butt up to like right about when like school's gonna start and like I'm coming in as a freshman. And she was super supportive because she had known that I had been having pain for a little while. It was something that I had mentioned previously on like our visits. And she was like, we have a great staff here. You're going to be able to like come in and they're going to help work with you like after the fact. So before I even had my surgery, I kind of like reached out to the coaching staff and I was like, hey, this is what's happening. And she was super supportive. She like even sent me like a little card and like I think a little gift basket after I had my surgery. So I felt like very loved and supported before I even went to school. Um, and as far as once I got there, um, it was also kind of hard to keep it a secret, even if I wanted to, because I was in the training room every single day.
Hmm.
Even just at practice, trying to keep up on the sprints and everything, it just got to the point where it was pretty obvious that I was having pain. And she eventually had to come to me and be like, you have to stop doing this to
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Um, so I think that comes back to the fact that I was a little nervous to try to just pull myself out. I wanted to be there with them. But she was the one that was like, yeah, no, you got to stop. So that
Yeah, if
also helped with my level of comfort for sure.
yeah, if memory serves, I think that was a 5-year conversation, not just a first year conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, Diandra, what about you? Let's go back to the question in case you forgot, because I may have. How did you prepare physically and mentally for that first year, first semester?
Physically, I think I did just enough to be able to come in and not get my butt kicked in practice or just those pickups and those preseason lifts. So I was like training with my trainer, and then just like going back to my high school and doing workouts with them over the summer. So that's what I did physically. Mentally, I don't think I did enough. But honestly, I don't think that anything prepares you for your first semester, let alone year in college, especially when you're going to play a sport. I think when the other two talked about like making friends, I think I got really lucky because I had Sierra, who we were from 15 minutes away from each other. So once I got my car, it was just like, it was us all the time. And that happened in the second semester, but even before I brought my car back to school. Like her grandmother was taking us to and from if we needed to get home. And then my roommate my first semester was fine. I mean, it eventually got rocky, like going towards the end, but in the same thing, like I got lucky. I was in a sweet situation. So the two girls on the other side were lacrosse players. And a little bit different from Sarah. They played a spring sport. So they were always there when when we were in season, because they don't start up until about January, February. So I really got lucky with them on the other side, and then I would just stay there all the time. And I still talk to them to this day. One of them is my best friend. So, I mean, the whole friends making situation, or just like being open to that, I think that's a personal thing. And like just, like taking the initiative to talk to people first, or just being open to when they talk to you, because everybody's in the same boat. Like everybody's a freshman in college. They don't know what they're doing. So it's just like, you have to be open to them coming up to you, or you seeing them in your class every day. You're like, oh, we have the same class and we live in the same building. And it's like, oh, our coaches are married. Like that's a unique situation to be in, that I think like we got really lucky with that. Like we had friends that we didn't even know were going to be our friends, like Sarah and Olivia. Like they had the field hockey girls, and like our coaches were married. Like that probably happens often, but we probably thought that was super special, and we took advantage of that. So I think just sometimes you do have to test your luck, but also being open as well.
So you said you don't think anything can prepare you mentally for that first year. What can you talk about, one or some of maybe those mental blocks that you hit?
I think as far as physically, I was fine. So I came in really fit. I think I was in a good situation where I did weight room things with my high school team. It wasn't like anything crazy, but I was already exposed to that for 4 years prior to coming in undergrad. So that was fine. But I think when we got to games, and like Sarah mentioned, like you come into a situation where everybody's the best, and you don't understand the, like, I don't want to say power structure, but just like the levels of what people have been through. Like Coach Kraft will use the example of like a leash. Like some people have longer leashes than others, and when you come in as a freshman, yours is really, really short. You don't get the amount of chances that the Jordan Sondrols or the Mackenzie Mathises will get when they mess up in a game. You get one chance, and that's just the beauty of being a freshman. So I think that was the first mental block I had coming in and getting injured. I sprained my ankle really bad at our first scrimmage against Frostburg State. And I think that put me back a little bit, but I missed that scrimmage. I didn't play at all. And then I think I was back the next day in practice. Like it was fine. And then I just battled with that my whole freshman year, but who doesn't roll their ankle? So like it wasn't a big deal. But not playing was my first mental block. And I was like, oh no, like, is this what it's going to look like for 4 years? I mean, we'll probably get into it, but like it did a little bit. That is what it looked like. And I think that it worked out for the better. I mean, a lot of people don't get to say they won 2 conference championships. Like here at Salisbury, they had their alumni day yesterday, and I just watched them. I'm like, I was just like a lot, like when we go back this weekend, like whoever will be there, like half of those people have won an ODAC championship. That's special. And everybody who came before the first people who did it are admiring the fact that they walked so we can run, or they ran so we could walk, whatever way you want to say it. But my first mental block was just not playing my freshman year, because I came from a program where we pressed for 40 minutes, and like college was a little bit slower. And like, that's what I thought it was going to be. And I think to Brooke's point, like asking direct questions, like what's the play style like, is something that I should have looked into more going into my first semester, because it was very different. Eventually we started to play faster, and if you know, you know, but that's just, I mean, that was the way it went. And I mean, it worked out, like I keep saying, but that was definitely a mental block for me. And I don't think you can prepare for that. Unless somebody tells you straight to your face, you are not going to play your freshman year, which sometimes is the case and sometimes it isn't. So who can really say what it'll be like? Because the season's long. We play the longest season. And so it's like, unless somebody tells it to your face and you internalize it and you take it in, no, I personally don't think anything can prepare you for that.
Yeah. So for all three of you, there were points in time where you didn't play a lot. So can you all maybe speak to how you got through that? Like, who did you lean on? How did you get through that? Was there ever a point when you were like, man, just like F it, like I'm done, or anything like that? So Sarah's nodding, so I'll start with Sarah.
I was just thinking about how I was going to answer this. Um, so freshman year, like I said, my preparation up to freshman year wasn't where I should have been. And, you always have consequences for those results. And I think I got my consequences and kind of a wake-up call. Like first year of Shenandoah basketball was probably the worst year I had. And I say that as I came from high school, I was the district player of the year. I had 1,000 points, all these accolades in high school. And you transition into college and, it's not like that at all. I looked at my sister and she had worked so hard to be where she was at the time that I got there. And me kind of being, and I don't want to say I had a big head, but, just being confident coming off of, high school basketball, thinking like, hey, I can go in there and I can score 15 points a game was just so unrealistic. And
Without
so
even looking
like,
at the basket.
right, exactly. Just throwing it up there, hoping it goes in, jacking out 3-pointers. No, I'm just kidding. I think after the first few scrimmages and games, I kind of, had to self-reflect, and I leaned on my sister to really, hold me down. And she's really good at keeping me humble. I know you guys know that. So she was the one who would just be like, listen, this is why you're not playing. And I can tell you already what you need to do. Like, I know Coach Kraft, Coach L, Coach Abby, they'll tell you. But if I'm being brutally honest with you, like, this is what you need to do. And you're not doing it. So really what I did was, let's say it was a scrimmage or practice and I didn't get in, right? And that was very common freshman year for me. Unless we were up by 20, I'd get in a game. But I would use practice and treat it like a game. Like, I'd be like, this is my time to have fun and work hard because I get to practice the whole time. There's no time in practice where I'm going to set the bench. So I have to use every day in practice as kind of like a challenge. And I enjoyed going to practice. I learned to like going to practice and competing and doing my best and, developing my skills so that when it gets further into my career, I can start to earn my minutes. So really for me, not playing, I think was a blessing, where it taught me to go into practice every day like it was a game, like I was trying to earn my minutes and, really just trying to prove myself. So, it sucked. It did stink. And there was many practices afterwards that I'd cry and I'd have to, go over to my aunt's house to see my sister and we'd have a heart to heart and, we'd do it over dinner or something. But it really taught me how to become a better person, not only a player, but just like self-reflect.
So how, in those moments where you were just not feeling like it just sucks, like period, how did you keep your morale high?
Like you said, it sucks. Like, it's super hard. It's mentally super hard to keep a positive attitude, especially when you're, not getting to contribute in the game. But, with it being my first year and like learning the ropes and growing up, really, I just had to look on the bright side of things and just say, hey, like, practice is your time to go hard and prove yourself and have fun. Like, really, I looked at it as I just need to start having fun. Like, it was a point where I just wasn't having fun because all I focused on was playing time. And in theory, that's not what's fun. Like, what's fun is going to practice, doing well in practice, being with your team, going to games. Like, every aspect other than playing time can be fun. Like, I know that's the main thing that people and players focus on when they're transitioning into college. But what I started to realize is college basketball is fun in all aspects. So if I make the best out of practice and make the best out of the quote unquote like shitty parts, then it'll be fine. And it kind of escalated from there. And I did better from there on. And sorry if I'm not allowed to cuss because that was the only word that I could really like. That's the only word that I could really describe that.
I just thought, do I have to check the explicit box now when I post this episode? I don't know, but we'll find out.
You can beep it out. Just beep it out.
All right, Brooke, what about you?
Yeah, so I think when I first came in as a freshman, I didn't play a whole lot. Minutes that I did get were playing as a post, which not me, but you know what? I
It was
did
a
it.
different time back then.
It was indeed. But so you know what? In my mind, I was like, I will do whatever if it gets me minutes on like I'll do whatever I have to do if I can go in and play and contribute. So that was my attitude my first year. And my second year, like when I still wasn't really playing a lot, I think I still wasn't like I was frustrating, but I wasn't at like any point where I was really like, oh, I want to quit because I'm not playing. Um, it was frustrating, but it wasn't to that point. And I think in my head, I was still thinking, we have some seniors on this team that have been like playing all 4 years and like starting all 4 years. And this is just me like doing my part and like waiting my turn, sort of thing. I think when it got really hard was toward like when I was playing as a grad student and wasn't getting as many minutes because in my head, I was like, wow, I'm killing myself to do school and to come here and to show up. And if I'm not getting, in my head, I was like, if I'm not getting a lot of return on the court, it's pretty hard for me to validate like coming and killing myself and being exhausted every day. And that's when I really needed to remind myself of like the other positive things that I was getting out of basketball. And some of the things were getting a mental break from school, like having a time to release my energy and my frustrations, like on the court, even if that was in practice. The friendships that I had. And like I also was the type of person that I was thinking, I think the team needs me, whether even if I'm not playing on the court. I was at a position where I was one of the bigger leaders on our team, and we had so many young players that I felt that quitting or leaving the team wouldn't have been beneficial and for anyone else. And I wanted to be there to still support everyone. And I think the way that I kind of channeled that was just trying to like be outwardly positive as much as I could. And that would kind of, it was kind of like a fake it until I make it thing. If I could be outwardly positive, then it hopefully in my mind I would be positive. Um, and it helped. And I mean, I got back to the point where I was like playing and contributing a lot when we really needed it and when it meant a whole lot. So I think that was kind of how I dealt with it. I also will just say this for people that are coming in. I always was the person, as kind of like Sarah talked about. If I was upset, I would go home and I would get upset. Like that's the time that you can have your feelings. Try your best not to be the person that's having their feelings in the middle of a game because that's just going to be worse for you. And usually, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, it's usually more detrimental and kind of hurt your chances more if you're the person that's getting upset on the bench when your team's winning because you're upset about not playing. So, just as a tip for all those people going into college or even now in high school. So,
Yeah, and I think it's hard to because it's like two things can be true, right? You can be happy that your team is winning and upset that you're not playing. And like
correct.
that can coexist.
Yes.
And you don't want one to overshadow the other. Like you don't want to feel like, oh, I have to be happy because my team is winning. And you don't want it to feel like or seem like to observers that I'm only I don't care that my team's winning and I'm upset because I'm not playing. So I think that's excellent advice of saying like you need to have an outlet, you need to have somebody or something that you can lean on in those moments. And not that you have to have it privately, but Sarah, you said you would drive to your aunt's house and you and Jordan would talk. And Brooke said you would go to your room after the game and be upset about that. And that's okay to do. And it's just about how you show up, which I think both of you explained very well how you show up each and every day. And Diandra, I know you kind of answered this question. Do you have anything to add based on what they've said or anything you've thought of?
Yeah, I think like when you ask like who did you lean on, I think that like the people on here right now are the people I leaned on. And then like a lot of people I know nobody probably really knows this, but we came in, Brooke was older than us, so she was in a year before, but me and Sarah came in with 8 other people. And then people started dropping like flies. And it was like, okay, like we're doing something right. Like we aren't the ones, quitting or going to a different school or whatever the case was. And then coach cut to people like after the first couple of days of practice. So that was like a wake up call, like, oh, like this is what's happening. And then that happened, and then people started quitting and whatever else. And then I think that once the season got going, we kind of just figured it out from there. I think that there was a point when Brooke talks about like showing your feelings. My first 2 years, I was really bad at like being bad at that. Like I am still the type of person to wear my whatever I'm feeling on my like face and my body language. But I think the older I get, the more intentional I am about it. So sometimes it's purposely because I want the people around me to know that I'm upset. But I do a better job of like not doing that. And that's just something you have to figure out. So my sophomore year, I figured, okay, maybe I want to coach, right? Because I love basketball. Like it isn't working out for me as far as playing time or whatever, contributing in the game. But I'm still doing what I need to do. Like we just freaking won the conference last year. Like what do I really have to complain about right now? Like we love each other. My sophomore year was a little scary. We had some stuff happen. But just like becoming a basketball junkie and watching a lot of basketball, I was like if I'm not going to play, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to just get better, make my team better. And then I just, from there, was just my junior year was COVID. So we only played 11 games and I was actually playing. So it was like, okay, whatever. Like we're doing this thing. We're going to play 11 games and see where that takes us. And then my senior year, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to coach. So at that point, it was like, no, I'm not going to quit. Like that is foolish. Like I've made it this far. I think there were definitely points where I was like, this is just stupid, like not playing my senior year. But I mean, I got over it. Like it was fine. Here we are. It was fine. But there were a lot of points over 4 years where I was like, I don't want to do this. And I think I leaned on my teammates. I think that as an athlete, you should, like, those should be your people. A lot of people don't get the same experience that we got with everybody loves everybody. I mean, you have some tips, but like these are your people you see every day. So, yeah.
Can I add two
Yeah, of
things to what
course.
Diandra said? Kind of to what Diandra was saying, the three of us had very similar experiences as far as playing time a lot throughout our careers. And so I think that leaning on each other was good because we were all in the same situation. But we also had a very fine balance of, okay, we'll let each other complain for like 2 minutes, and then we're gonna pick each other back up and be like, all right, like we just have to keep grinding because we're gonna get our chances. So having those people, I think sometimes it's beneficial if you're not getting a lot of playing time to lean on some of the other people that aren't getting a lot of playing time, but don't let it be all negative. Don't just sit there in a circle and complain the whole time about how you're not playing. You can complain about it a little bit, but then you guys need to lean on each other to help each other get those minutes. And then the other thing I was going to say is like how I was talking about being like outwardly positive, and Dee was talking about how at the very beginning she wasn't very good at hiding her feelings about it. I think that it's okay to have moments like you're allowed to have a day where your day is just not going well and you're upset about it. But trying to make most of your time a positive experience and having the positive outlook and thinking about all the things that make it fun. But just making sure that you have people that can pick you up on those really bad days when you're not able to hide it anymore.
So all three of you all mentioned, I mean, basically what I'm hearing is it was a perspective shift. So you were in a situation and then either you zoomed out or you zoomed in to like focus on one very specific thing, or zoomed out looking at the whole picture of maybe a 4-year experience or something like that. And then so that was one thing. So it's like a shift in perspective. And then the second big theme is like the relationships that you have, and you all built each other up instead of like either tearing each other down or pulling each other down. You tried to lift each other up, which I think is something that everybody should have in friends. And so So was there anything else? So thinking about those two things, and you can take a second to think about it if you need to, but aside from that, was there anything, if you look back now on either your whole experience or a specific year, was there something that maybe at the time felt maybe a little bit insignificant, but when you look back, it really helped you make that shift and like propel you forward or help you when lifting each other up?
I have mine, I would say. My junior year, I was going through a lot. I had so many injuries. My mental health wasn't great. Um, and I got voted captain. And I was kind of just like shocked because I wasn't around as much as I wanted to be, and I wasn't as much of myself as I thought that I was. And the fact that my teammates still saw me as someone that they wanted to lead them. I wasn't playing a whole lot of minutes. And I don't think in the moment I realized like how great that was that people like wanted me to be in that position. Um, and now looking back on it, I think I really needed that to get me through that year and to get me through just basketball in general. Like to know that my teammates needed me to be there and wanted me to be there was just great. And so that also helped me with a defined role. So even if I wasn't playing or getting minutes, I knew that I had a role and I was important to the team, and that really helped.
I'll do mine. I don't think that it's basketball related, like directly, but when I became an RA, that was something that really helped me. And I think for any student athlete out there listening, high school or college, is just if you can find the time to do something else outside of your sport, I would highly recommend it, because then you have a whole other set of people that are there for you, regardless if that's with your sport, your academics, or just the job that you're doing. I think that really helped me because it gave me a space outside of my sport and my team, where I was important. I think I was important on my team, but I was extremely important in the safety of X amount of students who lived in whatever dorm I was working in. So that is something that really, it seemed really small then. I mean, obviously it was big, but thinking about it, it was like really small in terms of like my sport. Like, okay, you're RA. And just to say, I was the first women's basketball player to ever become an RA. Just
Okay,
saying.
everybody take a moment.
Nice.
Clap,
Woo.
clap, clap.
Just saying. But that seemed really small in that moment, but I think that it really helped me just find a nice balance of like what I wanted to do and just like keeping me well rounded and happy.
hmm Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, so I think something that propelled me throughout my college experience would be probably going into my junior year. And like Deandra said, our junior year for me and her was COVID. So we only got 11 games that season, which completely sucked. Right? We wanted a full season, but within the circumstances, it was what it was. So really my junior year being my first year, by myself on the team without my sister. I know you guys are tired of me talking about her being on the team, but
The
my
Jordan
first,
Sondrol.
yeah, the Jordan Sondrol, if nobody knows. Uh, so my junior year is really my first year by myself, without a family member to lean on. So really starting to lean on my teammates, my roommates, Coach Kraft, Coach L, everybody in the community that, I had been with for the past 2 years. So it also being a short year and a lot of, difficulty and obstacles we had to overcome during COVID, but really just, taking on the mindset. And I know I talked about this a lot, like senior year, just like not caring and having fun and like taking every moment in, because getting into junior year, like you only have one more year after that. And especially our junior year being shortened, basically half the season, reflecting and being like, listen, I only have 11 games and a season left. So we're putting it into perspective, like it's now or never. Just kind of changing my complete mindset from what it was like, oh my gosh, I have 4 years of college, I have 3 years of college left. Now I only have like 1.5 of college left. So really just not caring and just changing my mindset to have fun, work hard, and really just take it all in because it does not last forever. And, I coach JV basketball now for my old high school. And me and my sister, we tell our girls every day at practice, like, we're here to have fun. Like, I know that sounds cliche, but if you have fun, you'll work hard and just, don't take it for granted because basketball doesn't last forever, depending on what level you're at, whether you just play up till senior year of high school or you move on to the collegiate level. It goes by so fast. So just soaking it all in and just making the most of every moment you have. So that was kind of what propelled me. It's just that my mindset changed during like the COVID times and all of that.
So that's a perfect segue because I feel like we could keep talking about everything forever. But let's talk a little bit about like leaving college, transitioning out of your sport. What's been the most surprising thing to you about life after college? Well, Diandra, you're still in college, but life after playing basketball. Whoever wants to jump in.
I mean, I'll go. I think because I am still a student right now, I think the most surprising thing is like how history repeats itself. And so I'm in a different situation than everybody that I graduated with. I mean, except Sarah, like semi, like with coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But like coaching at this level is it's honestly crazy. Like there are times where I text Coach Kraft and I'm like, I'm so sorry for like one time last year, I texted him like, I'm so sorry for complaining before a game because I had a kid like looking for the right size shorts. So I'm like, some moments I'm like, I'm surprised at the things that they say to me or that I see them do because I'm like, were we like that? Or just thinking about like changing my perspective, like, oh my goodness, our coaches had to deal with this. So I think that's been the most surprising thing, just to see things happen over and over. And I think like back to the last question, like what is something that seems small that has propelled me? I think not playing in college a lot propelled me to this moment now, like being there for our players who aren't getting a ton of minutes. Because I can speak from a perspective that's firsthand. Like I know what it's like to be in that situation. I mean, we've lost some, like they've actually quit. And then we have some still like holding on and just trying to get better. So I think not playing was obviously really big for me, but it's honestly really small when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, of like how many games we won and what we did as a team. But that really helped me now in like being an adult and being out of college, being out of undergrad because I'm still in grad school, but just seeing how things happen over and over again and just knowing where to give people their flowers because being a coach is hard.
But Diandra, you just said something really good too. And so Brooke, when she said something that really helped her was being named captain. So even though she wasn't playing, she was still named captain. She was told in some way that she was valued in a way that was important to her, right? Because I could talk on and on about how each and every one of you added value to the team, even if you didn't play. But Brooke felt value in that. You said you felt value in being a leader on campus, being an RA. So then my question to you is, and you don't have to answer this now, is like those student athletes that you're working with, how can you help them feel valued in either another role on the team or maybe outside of the team, and maybe that'll help them. Like you said, looking back, that's what propelled you forward. Maybe that's something that could propel them forward in like just sticking it out. And because I'm sure you know how they add value to the team. So it's like, how can you help them see that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit harder now. Like it's a different fight every day. Like these kids are different. Like our freshmen specifically, they are the kids who were ninth graders, I believe, when COVID first hit.
Mm-hmm.
So academically, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of those things, they're a little bit behind. So I think it is a different fight than what we went through when we were in undergrad. But I mean, I agree, like just trying to get them to see that, yes, it is a little bit harder, but just having those conversations and always like being available to them, I think is really important. I mean, that's what you and Coach Abby were to us. Coach Kraft was open, obviously, but as the assistant, it's a different like portal. Like it's a different conversation to be had when you hear and see everything that the head coach probably doesn't.
Yeah. All right, Sarah, what about you? Or did you start?
No, can you repeat the question one more time? I think I was so involved in Deandra's answer, so I forgot the question.
Oh, the what was most surprising to you
Oh,
about life after basketball? So after playing, because you're
yeah.
coaching now too.
Right. So I think within like the coaching world, like Deandra said, I go back to like, was this how I was when I was in eighth and ninth grade? Like, like obviously that was a while ago, so I can't remember. Um, but it's just kind of like, I'm sure we had our moments like they do, but really stepping into the shoes of like, okay, like, what advice can I give them at this age that they're going to take with them? Because I feel like we could talk and talk and talk as coaches about things that helped us, but they're not us. They're not the
Mhm.
player that we were. Some of them are just playing for fun. Some of them are playing because their parents make them. Some of them are playing because they actually like the sport. I think because my sister's the head coach and I'm the assistant coach, we really try to tell them also like basketball's fun. Like it is a fun sport. You guys should just watch basketball more. Like, even if it's just a game that's on TV, watch it, especially women's games. Like, just watch them. And so we really try to put life lessons into it too, because they're at such a young age and they might not play basketball till varsity or till college. But like, if we could do anything for them, just kind of making them better humans is what we say. We're like, we want to make you girls better humans, not only basketball players, but like better people when you leave here. So really just kind of moving to the coaching shoes from playing, it's really different. And I've said this, like, it is so hard to be a coach because like you just can't sub in for them. You can't go do what you want to make them do. And I'm sure you felt that way when we played, and Coach Kraft had felt that way also. Like, just how you have to tell them what to do and hope they do it. So that's what's different within the coaching aspect. And then in like my work environment, I'm in human resources, so it's kind of like an adult daycare to put it into honest terms. But really just kind of being one of the youngest HR generalists in our company, being fresh out of college. The, the actually who hired me was my old assistant basketball coach from high school. So she is a higher up corporate HR director. But when I came into the role almost 2 years ago, which is crazy, she was the HR manager, and she took a chance on me being fresh out of college. And gave me this role, and I'm very grateful for it. But I think a piece of advice from that transitioning out of college is like, keep your connections. I kept her as a connection after I left high school. I kept in touch with her when I came home for the summers from college. We'd go work out together, go get dinner. We would just talk. And she's really the person that I looked up to throughout my life and thinking about what I wanted to do in school. And I know I haven't talked about academics a whole lot on this podcast because it's a lot about basketball. But I went in, with the mindset I wanted to do human resources and business because of her. And I saw how successful she was and how much she loved her job. And that's kind of why I took the route I did. But really just keeping your connections from earlier in life, and just holding on to them. And that's kind of why I got the gig that I got. But yeah, that's kind of what I learned throughout.
All right, cool. And so I only have a few more questions because like this podcast can't be 1,000 hours. So, and if there's nothing, that's okay. But is there anything that you all would like do differently if you think about your whole college career, whether that's playing, academics, anything? And if there's nothing you would do differently, then that's okay too. But is there anything you all would do differently?
I would say at the beginning, just being more open-minded, to, like I said, making new friends right off the bat, just getting out of your comfort zone. I was very bad at that my first semester, with even my first year, of just staying within my comfort zone. And sometimes I still feel like I am, even though I've blossomed a little bit. Like, just getting out of your comfort zone and being okay with being uncomfortable in not just the basketball setting, but like the social setting, the academic setting. Because really that's what life is getting out of your comfort zone and doing new things. So, being me, knowing what I know now, it's easier to say than do it. But that's just the advice that I would give.
Brooke or D, anything?
I would say just trying to make more time for yourself and things that make you happy outside of just school and your sport. I think, especially at the beginning, at the beginning and then at the end when I was like in grad school and playing basketball, it was really hard for me to do anything outside of that. I always thought I was like, okay, when I'm not in school, I'm at basketball. I need to be focused on basketball. And when I'm at basketball, I need to not be focused on school. And like just trying to find a better balance and making myself step back and take a little bit of time for myself to do other things, to see other people and just like take care of myself. Life doesn't completely revolve around school and your sport. Um, so I would say that that's my biggest thing.
All right, and D, anything?
I think for me, as far as basketball, I wouldn't do anything different. I think I would just maybe have a better attitude. Like if I could go back and change it, I would have a better attitude those first couple of years of playing. And then academically, 100% I would have studied something different. Or I would have came in as core studies is what they call it now and really figured out what I wanted to do instead of being so hung up on like education and like majoring in education and wanting to do that route because I feel like I've limited myself getting an English degree. Obviously, it's great. Like I have a degree, nobody can take that away from me, but I would have 100% studied something different.
Yeah, I think that's good advice too. All right, so these are the last questions that I ask everybody, and I'll ask you all. So first, what book or podcast would you recommend every incoming first year read before the first semester begins, and why? And let's go with Brooke because she's looking around. I feel like she's looking at books right now.
I was looking, I was like, where are my books? The one that we read it my freshman year and my senior year, I think. Do you remember that book? Was it called
Legacy?
I was like, I couldn't remember if it was called Legendary. Legacy. I mean, I read, even though I had already read it my senior year or my freshman year, when we read it again as a team as a senior year, I reread the whole book because I thought it was just such a great story. And it wasn't just one of those books, I think, that like just tried to spew like motivation at you. Like they tried to embed it throughout a story. And reading about a team that wasn't within our own sport, for anyone that hasn't read this book, it's about rugby. And so I thought it was cool to learn the lessons from a different team and a different sport. I thought it was a great book. I highly recommend.
Yeah, and I think it's when you read the same book at different parts of your life or phases of your life, you definitely get something else out of it. So, Diandra, do you have one?
Yes. First, I want to say, Coach O, I'm sorry, and Coach Kraft, I'm sorry. But truthfully, when I was in college, I was not a reader, and I would read just enough so I could do my presentations in front of the team. And I'm just not okay with taking that to my grave. So I'm gonna apologize. And Coach Abby, if you're listening, I apologize for chop wood, carry water, because I did not read that book all the way through. But I do agree that when you read things at different points, it hits different. So I do plan on going back and reading all of those books again, fully. But if I had to recommend one, it would be the one that my team at Salisbury read, the Dare to Lead. I think no, that's not what it's called. That is not what it's called. Hold on.
Is it the Brene Brown book?
No,
Okay, that's Dare to Lead.
that's the one we read
Mm-hmm.
together. Shenandoah. It's the Wolfpack book by Abby Wambach.
Mm.
Wambach. Yeah, she was a soccer player. I would highly recommend it because it's short, and I think that that's just
The
it's a
reality of the
simple read.
situation.
Yeah, it is. And it's a simple read for a high school student coming into college. And I think it does touch on a lot of great points. So I read it in 2 hours. If you're like just locked in reading it, you can read it in a short period of time. But she just touched on a lot of different things as far as like being a leader or like being really high in your sport and being really low. And I think everything in between those two is really good for anybody coming into play, whatever sport it may be.
Cool. What about you, Sarah?
So I can't remember what year we read this book, but I don't know if it was the year we split up and a few groups read a different book. But I read the book Grit. Was that the same year, or did we read that together?
No, it
I
was
can't
it was
remember.
it was like book groups. So you and a couple other
Okay.
people read it.
Right. So I really, and I don't know if Coach Croft picked groups strategically on what book she was going to give us.
Of course
And
we did.
I feel like she did, and you did too. And I'm sure you guys collaborated and was like, Sarah Sondrol needs this book. She needs the book Grit. But I swear, like that just it encompassed like my whole Shenandoah experience. And I would recommend that book for any athlete transitioning into college, and really even in college towards the later years. It just like perseverance, obviously the word grit was what the book's about. So it really just speaks volumes to like the kind of person and the kind of like ideas you have to have being a college athlete and just pushing through the hard times. And then for podcasts, listen to this one because Coach L, I'm sure she's got a lot of
Thanks,
great
Sarah.
advice promoting it. Yeah. But I also say like Diandra, I wasn't a big reader either. And like I feel like that should like it's all right, but I wish I would have read a little more books because a few more books. But yeah, I didn't like to read a whole lot. I definitely read the books that we did for basketball, but when it came to like school and other things or a book outside on my own time, I definitely didn't. But I'm glad you guys made us read books because it was beneficial.
Yeah. So what is something about the recruiting process or transition to college you believe is overlooked by a lot of high school students? We'll start with Brooke again. Brooke D, Sarah.
Um, Obviously this isn't super important, but it's definitely something to think about is the area that the school is in. I feel like I've had friends before that, they end up at these colleges that are in the middle of nowhere and they're kind of miserable because they can't do where they remove themselves from the situation. Like they didn't have any way to like debrief or like another release outside of their sport or their academics because they didn't like the area that they were in. Um, so I know when I was looking, I did consider, the cities or whatever and what was around and if that aligns with what I like to do. Like Shenandoah, we're right at the peak of the national park. And I was like, that's great. When I need some time off or time away, I can go to the river, I can go for a hike, any of the things. So it's not obviously a make or break. Like if you love a school, go for it, but it's something that you should consider because you're going to spend 4 years there and you're not going to stay on campus every single day, or at least you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So consider the things around there.
All right, D, what about you?
Oh, I have one. You should consider what the campus is like. So when I say that, I mean if it is full of hills or if it is flat. For multiple reasons. I mean, if you want to work out around campus, do you want to run on hills or do you want to run on a flat surface? When you're walking to classes, do you want to walk on hills like Shenandoah? Or do you want to walk on a flat surface? I really can't think of anything else, but that's my one that I think is very small that is really important over the course of 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. You got calves, I guess. Sarah.
I just want to say Deandra's making Shenandoah sound like we're in like the middle of nowhere, like
But for
mountains and
but for
hills.
her,
I'm
but for
like,
her
for
it
me,
might
it's
be.
not. Yeah, I was
Sarah,
gonna say I definitely
you
more city
come
than where I
from
come from.
the sticks. You are actually from the boonies. I'm from the city. Shenandoah is like right in the middle of both of those two. I really had a hard time.
Man, I'm like, y'all got a Chipotle. I love this place. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, we have a Chipotle now. It's fine. We just got it. So, but I would say kind of touch on what Brooke said. It's really important to be in a place you like because I look at a lot of the ODAC, especially the ODAC schools that we had to travel to throughout our college career, and we're like, wow, like I could not see myself being in this area for 4 years. And you know what schools I'm talking about when we think about schools like that. So, so yeah, I think that's super important, and I'd agree with Brooke on that point.
All right, so last but not least, any final words of wisdom? Or if you think that you've said it all, you could just mic drop it right here. Boom.
Yeah.
All right, so if anyone, I don't know, if anyone wants to keep up with you, you want to plug anything, if there's anything happening in your work, if you're hiring, I don't know, in your work, in your, I don't know, whatever you want to promote, Salisbury, Johns Hopkins, who knows? But is there anything you all want to plug or promote or anything like that?
I mean, we are hiring.
Johns Hopkins, what are you hiring for? What positions?
Physical therapist, physical therapist assistants, occupational therapist assistants.
Mm.
We kind of need a
we
little
can
bit
work
of
together,
everyone.
Brooke. Maybe.
That would make me so happy.
All right. So if you have any of those degrees and you are looking at Johns Hopkins,
Come
apply.
hang out with me.
Yeah.
I was going to say my market's a little more niche. If anybody welds or can operate a forklift, machine operators, right here. We're always hiring. I know that might not be the audience that's listening, but that's what I hire
you never
for.
know. You never know.
I know,
What's the name of the company?
So this is just the business we're in, but it's Tenneco. Tenneco
okay.
Automotive, but Drive is our business sector. I know it's confusing. I'm so confused, but
but if you can
but yeah,
weld,
if you can weld, if you have a forklift, you would drive a forklift. Let me know. We can do
all right. Send Sarah your resume. She's in HR.
Yeah.
She'll just push it through.
And you can look on Indeed. Yep.
All right, Diandra, what about you?
I don't have anything to plug, but GA contract's almost up. Your girl will be looking for a job soon. So anybody in coaching, anybody needs an assistant, director of basketball operations. Hey, I'm
all
here.
right, so she is doing an opposite of a plug. She is marketing herself. She is saying, if you need me, contact me.
I'm proficient in all things technology, synergy, all those good things. Huddle, I can do it all.
All right, what's your email?
My email is D.
If they want to get in touch with you, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's D.Mundle@me.com.
All right.
I will say I have one more shameless plug.
Okay.
And that is, I mean, we have to say, if you're looking at D3 colleges, Shenandoah, I like to think that I could speak for all of us. I would not change my experience. And I am so grateful that I got to spend 6 years at Shenandoah. I loved every second of it. So my shameless plug, you're welcome, Coach Kraft.
Listen, I tell my JV girls all the time, some of our high school girls, if you're looking for a college, we're not trying to be biased, but
we
like
are.
Winchester, I know a place. We're going to start being the feeder program to Shenandoah. That's what we told Coach Kraft. We're going to.
So
we're just going to do all her recruiting for her at this point.
Oh, yeah.
After this episode drops, so February 1st, I'm sure she will have 1,000 people filling out the recruiting questionnaire online. Diandra, you're about to have 1,000 emails saying, we want you, come coach today. All right. I think we about covered it. I appreciate all of you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for listening. If you're looking for more specific recruiting advice based on your situation, head over to hoopsthroughlife.com today to schedule your free 30-minute strategy session with me. We will discuss where you currently are in the recruiting process, where you want to go, and create a plan to get you there. Again, that's hoopsthroughlife.com, hoopsthroughlife.com. And if you have any questions for me or questions you want me to ask future guests, you can email me at l@hoopsthroughlife.com. That's EL@hoopsthroughlife.com. I look forward to hearing from you soon.